Hey there, are you ready to create some awesome JavaScript Canvas 2D projects using fail2? Then let's get started. In the repository of fail2, you find some getting started guide where it says you need to install Node.js with npm and get fail2 on your computer. You can either clone it with Git or you can also use the green code button in the top right where it says download zip if you click on it. And what you also need to do is to install the dependencies. So once you have fail2 on your computer, open the terminal, go into fail2 folder and run npm install. This will install all the dependencies that are needed. Then you also need the .env file, and we have provided a .env.example file, which you can copy and rename. And in there's an OpenAI key where you put your key that you created using the openai.com website. And once you have this ready, we can jump into actually using the tool. So I have Visual Studio Code open here. You can use, of course, whatever you want. Let's create a new terminal and start our dev server with npm run dev. So when we execute this will start a local development server, opens a tab in your browser pointing to localhost 8080. And in there's a canvas element which spawns on the whole size of the tab and will be used as our output. So everything that will be generated, we will see on that canvas. We open another terminal and now want to start one of our starters. The starters start with base followed by dash and then the name of the starter. We will use the default one, and to see which kind of options are available, we can use -- help. And there you can see all the different options that we provide on the CLI. And the most important for us is -p, which stands for prompt. And all of the other ones have actual default values and we will not touch them. So we will write node base -default.js -p and then quote red rectangle quote and execute this. Then we will see that there is a message generation 001, which means that the generation 1 will actually be created. And now we see on the canvas as this is done that we have a huge red rectangle. This created two files. One of them is base.md, which is the markdown file that contains the whole command with all the parameters, also with the default parameters, and also subparts with all of the options on their own. For example, the red rectangle prompt. And what we also see is generation -0001.js, which is the generated code with a changelog in the top where you always see generation 0 from the starter file and generation 1 where it implemented the red rectangle. And if you take a look at the draw function, you see there's a command draw red rectangle using context fill style and the hex value for red and context fill rect to create a rect that spawns over the whole canvas. And taking a look at base default here, this is the boilerplate code that fail2 is providing for canvas applications, where it's always useful to actually have access to the canvas element, a context. We set the width and the height of the canvas to match the window height and width, and also provide a draw function with a predefined way to handle animations using request animation frame and also throttle this to 60 frames per second. Yeah, so we have a nice rectangle now, but now let's extend this. We have another parameter called -g, which stands for generations, and this means that we create code for generation base default, which is the starter generation now. And after each generation, the generated code will be actually sent to the OpenAI API and gets extended, evolved, fixed. So let's start. We see the blank canvas again as we're starting freshly. Generation 1 is created. We have a rectangle again. We open generation 1.js and see it's basically the same code as before. Now generation 2 is completed. We have a linear gradient. Top left is red, bottom right is blue. So generation 3 is done. We also see in the changelog that implement animated gradient rectangle, which we don't see. But now with generation 4 actually created, it implemented a pulsating circle in the middle. And now generation 5 is done and it implemented a rotating triangle. Okay, so I think I am happy with generation 4. Generation 5 went into a total different direction. And we have the possibility to instead use the base default as our starting point. We start at generation 4. And this means also combined with -g5 that from generation 4 we will create another generation to a total of 5. But we don't want to use the red rectangle here. We say multiple rainbow circles. So it is using the code of generation 4 and puts that into GPT with the new prompt. So we see code, this is generation 4, it has a pulsating white circle in the middle and then rainbow gradient in the background. Now we have multiple circles. And each circle is pulsating and they have like a different color. The one on the left is red, then orange, then yellow, then green, and then blue. So we have some rainbow circles. And if we take a look at the generation 5 JS, we also see changelog, which says implement multiple rainbow circles. And the number of circles is 10. And if we would like to actually play around with this code, you can totally do this if you go into project source and index.js, which is just the code without the wrapper stuff. So whatever you change here will be shown on the left. So what we could do for the fun of it, change the circle radius to 25 and the spacing to 50. And then we would see the circles even more here and do the same again. And then we have them all on the screen. But this is totally optional. You don't need to actually write any code here. We could also would have done this over the prompt. I just wanted to show you the different possibilities to work with the code here. And now we have a lot of generated files. And if you want to save this, you can do this. And if you might have seen also there's generation 5 MD file, because we ran the script from generation 4, which means that generation 5 actually is based on a different prompt. And this is why we create a new markdown file here for you. So you see, okay, from generation 5 on, the prompt was multiple rainbow circles. When I recorded this video, there was still a bug with the generated markdown file. It should have been named generation4.md because we started with generation 4, but instead it was called generation 5md. This has already been fixed. Yeah, now we have a lot of files and we could get rid of this. So we can say we remove -g5 and use -c, which stands for clean, and get back to our starter because we are assuming we are done with what we created here. We just want to create something new from scratch and we don't want to delete the files manually. So what we could do here is do node base-default.js -p in quotes matrix code and then -c. And now all of the generated files from the previous generations will be deleted and we start from scratch. Yeah. And now we started from scratch, have a completely new art curated, which is based on the matrix. Thanks for watching, and we at failfa-st are looking forward to what you are building with fail2. Bye bye!